and welcome to AI news that you should know about. I'm your host, Ashley Coffey, and this is the week of October 17th.
I'm Daniel Hill. Every week in about 15 minutes, we cover all the AI news stories that you should be aware of. This week, we'll be talking about Sam Altman saying that OpenAI isn't the moral police of the world after they're adding erotic content to ChatGPT and it's blown up. Additionally, OpenAI makes a 5-year business plan to meet the $1 trillion that they've pledged to spend. We'll also talk about the Japanese government calling on OpenAI makers of Sora2 to refrain from copyright infringement. And we'll talk about a new startup, Jack and Jill, that raises $20 million to bring conversational AI to job hunting.
We'll be covering all of these stories and more on our show, but first, here's a quick word from our sponsors. Welcome back. Let's dive in. Our top story this week, Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, says that OpenAI isn't the moral police of the world, end quote, after erotica GPT blows up. So let's dive into this. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman said his company is, quote, not the elected moral police of the world after receiving backlash over his decision to allow content like erotica within ChatGPT. And the AI startup has been expanding its safety controls forcefully and for a lot of reasons, and has been mounting scrutiny over how it protects users. And in December of this year is when Altman said it would allow more content, including erotica, on ChatGPT. This is very interesting, and I'm not quite sure how this is going to go because, in the sense that we're already using so much energy on saying please and thank you to AI chatbots, we are cooked if erotica is now on the table for ChatGPT to do what you will with. What are your thoughts, Daniel?
I think this is something that definitely is designed to increase usage of ChatGPT and to help increase the amount of people who are willing to pay for ChatGPT. We'll get into this in one of the articles that I picked, but a lot of people just use the free version of ChatGPT and don't see the need to pay for it. But if they had a relationship with the chatbot that was so close and so connected that they felt like it was a human relationship, they could be persuaded to pay $20, $30 a month, even more to continue that relationship. So I think that's where Sam Altman is trying to focus on from a revenue generation standpoint, how to turn free users into paid users. What do you think?
It's very interesting timing that we are talking about this because let's not forget that in September, the Federal Trade Commission launched an inquiry into OpenAI and other companies about how chatbots like ChatGPT could negatively affect children and teenagers. And specifically, we've talked about this. OpenAI and Character.ai are named in a wrongful death lawsuit from a family who blamed ChatGPT for their teenage son's death by suicide. But more specifically here, I want to hone in on this. This is a headline that really floats under the radar. On Tuesday, before this announcement, OpenAI announced that they assembled a council of 8 experts who will provide insight into how AI impacts users' mental health, emotions, and motivations. Who the heck are these 8 people? Or is my question. So we're going to definitely be following this.
This is one to watch for sure. Let's move
Yeah.
on to our next story, which has to do with a similar vein, OpenAI making a 5-year business plan to meet the $1 trillion spending pledge that they've made. The article that we're referencing, and we'll link to it in the show notes, it has an image of all the large tech companies that have tied their fortunes into OpenAI. And the list of companies includes Google, Oracle, Amazon, NVIDIA, and Microsoft. These companies have staked their future growth on OpenAI's future growth. All these companies are intertwined. We talked about that last week, but the amount of effort that OpenAI is going to have to put in order to meet these revenue goals, these spending goals, it's a huge leap. Right now, OpenAI books about $13 billion in annual recurring revenue. 70% of that comes from consumers who use ChatGPT, which costs $20 for a standard subscription. ChatGPT has more than 800 million regular users, but only 5% of those are paying subscribers. Obviously, OpenAI's goal there is to grow the number of paying subscribers, but there's a lot of concerns. Who are the people who are going to be willing to pay for this? And looking at OpenAI's operating losses. In the first half of this year, they lost $8 billion. So there's a lot of risky things that need to come together in the right way in order for this to be successful and not be the bubble that it seems like everyone is pointing to. Ashley, what do you think?
Yes, this ties into our episode from last week. So if you haven't listened to that, go ahead and go back because it is relevant and it's something that will be a recurring theme on this podcast is this circular, almost kind of like bubble that's happening, kind of like The Big Short, if you've ever seen that movie, of these companies are really just funding each other. It's cyclical and time is running out. We'll see what happens. It's very strange though to see it in real time of just how big of a bubble it is, but it also makes me want to go tell all these small startups that are doing AI stuff of like, be intentional. Like, don't just get into it because it's AI, because you're going to have a very small chance of success considering what this bubble looks like.
Absolutely. Yeah. Excellent point. We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking about the Japanese government calling on OpenAI to refrain from copyright infringement and a new startup that raises $20 million to bring conversational AI to job hunting. Stick around. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Let's continue with our stories. Ashley, go ahead.
I love that. Okay, so the Japanese government calls on Sora2 maker OpenAI to refrain from copyright infringement, says that characters from manga and anime are irreplaceable treasures that Japan boasts to the world. So if you remember, I think, what is it, 6 months ago, what was it, the Japanese style manga that came out and people were really concerned about it taking over. Anyway, I'll find it when I'm not on this show. So the Japanese government made a formal request asking OpenAI to refrain from copyright infringement. And this comes as a response as Sora2's ability to generate videos featuring the likenesses of copyrighted characters from anime and video games. And October 1 is when Sora2 launched of this year. It's capable of generating 20-second long videos at EP resolution, complete with sound. And soon after its release, social media was flooded with videos generated by the app, many of which contain depictions of copyrighted characters, including those from popular anime and game franchises like One Piece, Demon Slayer, Pokemon, and Mario. And the Japanese government's Cabinet Office press conference on Friday informed everyone that the government's request called on the American organization to refrain from infringing on Japanese IP. So this is interesting because I believe the last incidents that we had, if I'm remembering correctly, it's a specific style of Japanese anime and people were using. And their argument was that it was a style and style can't be copyrighted. So there's different considerations and definitions of copyright, both in like Japan and the US, obviously. And we're in a wild west. So I don't blame Japan for wanting to protect its like cultural content. What are your thoughts, Daniel?
I'm actually surprised that more companies haven't come out and forthrightly said this new app should not have any of our copyrighted characters, actors, anything because of all the capabilities that it can do and the opportunities for misuse. Having said that, it seems like OpenAI's strategy is give unlimited copyright infringement ability and worry about the rest later, which would be fine for two college students in a dorm room coming up with a new idea, but it's something completely different for a company that has such a large valuation and is so critical to so many other companies' futures. So overall, I'm very surprised at OpenAI's approach to this whole intellectual property situation.
Yes, and to correct what I said, it was not Murakami. It was Studio Ghibli was the anime style, and that was in March of this year. Whenever OpenAI introduced the ability for their 4.0 tool to generate images. Correction corner. We'll be watching this.
All right, let's move on to our last story, which has to do with a new startup, Jack and Jill, who have raised $20 million to bring conversational AI to job hunting. Let's be honest, job hunting right now is challenging on both sides of the table. People can apply to jobs faster than ever before using AI, but companies do not have the time, energy, resources, manpower to review all the people who are applying. So this new startup has a plan to address that. And it's an interesting concept. They have an AI tool called, or it's two parts. of an AI tool. The Jack side handles the applicant. It does a 20-minute AI powered profile interview. And then based on that interview, it gives them a list of roles from online databases that seem like it would be a match. Then the same applicant tool, Jack, can be used for mock interviews, professional coaching, and so forth. The other side of the program, Jill, works with employers, building a profile of particular candidates that would match the requirements. And so both of these tools work together. And the goal here is to make this tool a redoing of the way people apply and get jobs. I wouldn't bring this up other than the fact that it's already been deployed in London and they have 50,000 users. So that says to me, this is a tool that's been deployed, tested, people are using it in a major city. These are all good signs. Ashley, what do you think?
I agree with you 100%. I think it's a good sign. And essentially, that's market validation, especially in a market so big as London. It's working and people are enjoying it. And I think people are just ready for something new. That's not the traditional process of doom and gloom and waiting and wondering. So I appreciate that a company is willing to be innovative and step up to try to solve for that. So I'm interested to see what happens next, but I hope that they continue to grow and gain that popularity and momentum.
Yes, I don't love the online AI interview, but if it's something you only have to do once and it helps you to not only get matched up with jobs, but also improve your interview skills, then maybe it's worth it. Even though I don't like talking to a AI chatbot in that manner, especially on video.
Well, yeah, and then we haven't even talked about the bias that happens with that. I've seen so many researchers highlight that there's bias that can be inferred through AI if you're wearing glasses or a hijab or something that's non-traditional that's goes against what the language learning model was trained on, which is primarily traditionally white male. So a lot of things to take in consideration here, but I'm glad that you pulled this story this week.
Yeah, may as well. That is it for our AI news that you should know about this week. And now, Ashley's AI tip of the week.
All right, this is not sponsored at all, but I'm going to talk about a really cool tool that I learned about this week called Plaud, Plaud, Plaud.ai. It's a little piece of hardware that just sticks on the back of your phone, kind of like this, and it can record conversations without announcing to the caller that you're recording. Now, I'm in Oklahoma, which is a one party consent state, and you can record conversations as long as one party is consent to that, which is could be the caller or the recipient. And these are non-nefarious reasons. Maybe you just want to have a repository of your conversations because you're going from one thing to another throughout the day. So I love that there's a tool that you can just physically slap on. You can record calls. So it uses vibrations. So it has to be on the back of your phone. It uses the vibrations that come through the little earpiece here to translate and create a transcript of a recording of that call. Now, you can't use your headphones, which makes sense, but also you can use it in person if you're at a conference or an event, if you want to set your phone down. I just love those tools that create less resistance. And Otter AI is great and all these other tools are great. But if I want something that works for both virtual and in person, I think this is great. So I can't speak enough highly about them. I think you have to pay a subscription each year for X amount of minutes of transcription based on how often you use it. But I am a big fan. I love it. I'd love to make one of my own where I don't have to pay a subscription, but would love to share with the audience. Plot.ai, check it out.
We will link to that in the show notes. You can find links to everything we talked about today in the show notes, and you can connect with us on social media. We'd love to hear what you think of the show and how we can make it better. You can find me at Daniel Hill Media on Instagram, Threads, and YouTube.
And thank you, the listener, for listening to today's episode of AI News That You Should Know About. If you would like more tech talk, please connect with Daniel and myself on Instagram or Threads or really wherever you are on social media. You can find me on Instagram at Ashley R. Coffee 89, Coffey. And you can find my other tech podcast called Copy and Code, where we have long form interviews with innovators and experts in the field who are using emerging tech. But if you're curious about AI and you want to have the next step of a conversation of how do I implement that into my business or how do I do an end of year workshop to burn through those professional development dollars that I still have in my budget, go ahead and reach out to me. I'm Ashley Coffey with Coffee and Consult, and we specialize in helping small and medium sized businesses leverage technology for efficiency and profitability. So I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you for listening, and come back next week for more AI news that you should know about.